Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learn back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit Venus making a square opposition or inconjunct aspect to one's natal Venus. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve Venus, this could be about our love, enjoyment, money, values. It could be about possessions, resources, or self-worth, self-esteem, how we feel about ourselves. And when you have the transit of Venus basically making an adverse aspect to natal Venus, when I say basically adverse aspect to natal Venus, what I'm saying is, the square and the opposition, of course, are adverse aspects. The inconjunct is seen as neutral, but it does require adjustment. It's still which is not, which can be difficult for people. But anyway, when you have the transit of Venus basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Venus, well, it may manifest in love, enjoyment, money, values, possessions, resources, the self worth, self esteem, how one feels about oneself. Well, this might conflict in some cases with your relationships. If your self-worth or self-esteem may be suffering, maybe you don't feel like relationship is for you because of this, or maybe there's some monetary issues in some cases which might be challenging a romantic relationship. Say if the transit Venus is in Aquarius, it might be some kind of erratic or sporadic or fluctuating monetary situation. um, the thing about this is Venus is also connected with our significant friendships. It could be about romantic relationships, a significant other, but it could also be about our important and significant friendships. And the thing about it is, maybe it's a time where you question, how much do you value your significant, your important friendships at this time, or maybe it's something where maybe your self-worth might be depleted, where you don't feel like maybe you deserve friends. In some cases it can be a situation where it might be more difficult expressing sentiments and feelings toward those people, toward your relationships, toward people that are important friends at this time. Now, Venus can also be connected with art. If you're somebody that's an art collector, again, going back to the monetary situation, it could be difficulty in coming up with the monetary, the funds basically to afford pieces of art. It can be a situation too where, if you're somebody that's trying to, Venus is about value. If you're trying to evaluate, or I should say value, you find the value of price in a piece of art you may have, it might be more difficult to ascertain it at this time. Venus is also about peace and tranquility. So it's a time where you might be realizing or more cognizant of the fact you might not be valuing that peace in your life at this time, and maybe you need to put more value into it. Now, the thing is, it might be harder at this time to, I don't say, we'd say love your values at this time, or things that you value, to really put the enjoyment in that at this time, more so than usual. If your natal Venus, say, is in Pisces, it might be, relaxation, meditation, even sleeping, just isolation from time to time. And again, Venus is associated with our self-worth, our self-esteem, how we feel about ourselves. So the thing about it is, it could be a relationship or significant friendship might be adversely impacting how you feel about yourself at this time. It's important not to let that impact you or somebody else's, what they believe, bring you down at this time. And Venus is associated with love, so it can be a time where maybe you're questioning about valuing your love, your romantic connections at this time, more so than usual. The things you may simply love and enjoy. Venus is about our enjoyment. Um, it can also be a time too when you look at Venus again is associated with money. And it might be, a situation where you have to be careful not to maybe love money too much and become, overly greedy or avaricious, especially say if you have like Taurus involved in this transit. Um, it can be a situation too where, you look at Venus anatomically speaking, Venus is connected with the throat, the neck, the lower back, the kidneys, thyroid. It can be a situation where one of these things that I talked about that are anatomically connected with Venus may curtail any kind of enjoyment at this time that you have, things you like to do. Um, can be say if your natal Venus is in Scorpio, it might be things your enjoyment may be connected with the occult, which includes astrology or solving mysteries, problem solving in general, recycling, being able to transform things. It could be the engine of a car or car in general. Another thing too. Now, looking at this, Venus is also connected with attractiveness and our fashion. Maybe you don't love yourself in terms of looking attractive, or the way you dress. Maybe you might not be satisfied with it at this time. It might be a time to you're realizing that this is not working for me. Venus could be connected with fashion, and also Venus is associated with lawsuits and legal matters. So it can be a time where you might, going back to the monetary thing again, that you may not, it might be harder to come up with the funds, perhaps if there's money required to file a lawsuit. Scorpio is involved, it might be a wrongful death as an example. Legal matters may be more costly than you anticipated. Another thing too is that Venus is also about negotiation. So it can be that if you're trying to negotiate something, say if it's with a significant friendship or someone you're in a romantic relationship with, it might be harder to do so at this time, and maybe when the transit ends, it might be a little bit easier, or when you're getting more like a sextile or trine as opposed to basically an adverse aspect to your natal Venus. It can also, another way this transit may manifest, this could be something, again, going to reiterate what I was saying before, you don't maybe love your own attractiveness. Um, maybe maybe even your significant friendships, maybe you're not exactly enamored with them at this time either. If the natal Venus is in Capricorn as an example, it may be maybe you're dressing, you feel like you're too conservative, or you're older looking at this time, and it might be impacting how you look, your beauty, your attractiveness adversely. Um, Now, it can also be a time when relationships might conflict with your fun, your enjoyment, whether it's a hobby or whatever it is you're doing that you find enjoyable or amusing, that makes you happy. Now, if the natal Venus is in Aquarius, as an example, it could be doing, you might be doing something with astrology or astronomy, computers, electronics, um, maybe even doing things that are altruistic or humanitarian endeavors. And this could be where relationships might be getting in the way of this, and these matters with your significant friendships, your relationships may be taking precedence over this at this time. And it can be about, Venus is again about value, and it might be more difficulty in ascertaining the value of perhaps some possessions you may have. Venus can be associated with our possessions. Now, if the natal Venus is in Sagittarius, as an example, it could be sports memorabilia, collectibles. It could be a signed basketball by a famous legendary basketball player from 30 years ago, as an example. It could also be, it might be more difficulty in expressing your sentiments as to a lover at this time, more so than usual. Hold on a moment, people. sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, what I would say as well as far as this transit goes, well, say if transit Venus is in Taurus, it could be difficulty in expressing very sensual, demonstrative feelings toward a lover. Um, if it's in Gemini, transit Venus in Gemini could be manifold feelings. Um, Now, in some cases, this will reiterate what I was saying previously. There may be issues. If there's any issues with the lower back, the throat, thyroid, kidneys, the neck that you may be experiencing, it might be adversely impacting the things that you enjoy, that you love at this time. Now, let's say if the natal Venus is in Pisces as an example, it could be chemistry, photography, maybe poetry, dancing, maybe a videography if you're making doing like what I'm doing, like making YouTube videos, or something with the metaphysical, which includes astrology. As some examples, oceanography, it could be some water sports as some other examples. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learning, stay well.